along there, we want to talk about some combine winners and sleepers. Yes, the NFL combine did happen. Yes, it doesn't mean everything in the world for some of these people, but yes, it is exciting all the same. And yes, there are some guys who've probably gotten onto our radar that we weren't even thinking about. And yes, maybe that's a bit of an overreaction because athleticism or whatever, but we don't care. So I think we've structured this, Jeremy. It's both winners. These can either be winners or they can be like sleepers, personal sleepers, guys who weren't
Right.
on your radar before, who you're now going to pay more attention to. And we've got one of each of us for offense and defense. Is that correct?
That's right.
We'll talk about some other combine stuff on top of it too. But yeah, so where do we want to start with this? By the way, I think we already set the rule here that I'm not allowed to talk about Anthony Richardson in this segment either.
Yes. Don't worry, everybody. We're not going to talk about him on every segment until the NFL draft.
Until he's drafted by the Lions.
We're already doing it again.
Anyway, how do we want to start? How do we want to go, like, each of ours for offense? You just want to go individuals, like, down the list, Jeremy, Reisman, Chris?
Let's all do our offensive pick first. Who wants to go first?
Okay. I think we all this is kind of neat because I feel like we all kind of try to find different positions, each and every one of us too. So,
all right.
I was going to say, the other thing that I noticed about all of the players that we picked are all players that the Lions might be interested in.
Yeah. In one way or another.
Yeah. Positionally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jeremy. You kick it off.
I'm going to turn in my Wolverine card right away and say that I was impressed by Michigan State wide receiver Jayden Reed. And that's putting aside the whole like weird eye infection thing that he played through, which was a crazy story in and of itself. But he's a guy that showed out at the Senior Bowl, and I kind of raised an eyebrow. And you're like, oh, I don't remember seeing that sort of stuff when Michigan beat him. Anyways, but again, like he put up crazy numbers at the NFL Combine, and you just I don't know. I look at the kind of player he is, and I think like. Listen, the Lions don't need a slot. They don't need a shifty guy necessarily. But I think of maybe like a long-term Khalif Raymond type of player with a much higher upside. They could use someone like that within their depths. And not that there's anything wrong with the Khalif Raymond right now as it is. But I think Jayden Reed is just – he's got a little more shake than I thought he did. And the fact that he put up the numbers that he did at the Combine – let me pull up his RAS card because I know – I believe it's in the 9s. 9-8. Well, oh, no. I'm looking. Go ahead.
I was going to add, while you took a look at things, I think the reason why this kind of makes sense for the Lions in terms of having a wide receiver like him on their radar is because, like you said, hey, maybe you might be looking for like life after Khalif Raymond. But at the same time, the Lions have Amon-Ra St. Brown. They have Josh Reynolds. They have J-Mo. But beyond that, in terms of where they are long-term, this could be a guy who could potentially fill a role.
Yeah, and I think he has. I mean, he's probably not a prototypical outside receiver, but I think he can have a little bit of more versatility than some people are maybe. I don't know, fitting him in a certain box. I don't know if he can be a wide receiver too, but I think there's more to him than I thought going into this draft. So he's my sleeper / guy I want to pay a little bit more attention to. Maybe go back and watch some film of his.
Yeah, I'll jump right in and I'll say my player on offense that I was. It wasn't somebody who just like burst out of the scene for me. It was somebody that I was keeping an eye on, but now it's a player that I actively want the Detroit Lions to try to nab up in the draft, and it's Georgia's tight end Darnell Washington.
Yep, he had a 9.78 RAS overall. We're gonna keep doing. We're gonna keep plugging Kent's scores because he's a friend of ours. But I like this from you, Ryan. I hope I'm not interrupting on anything here, but like I think I know the hesitancy to pick up anyone at tight end, just given the track record of the Lions in the past of drafting tight ends, but it is a need. And Washington does have that kind of size. He has great speed. And I think the Lions could really use like an upgrade there at tight end to like on a day 2 to just round out the offense and add some more blocking. Like I don't want them to keep going to 6 lineman sets.
Yeah. Here's the thing about Darnell Washington though. he effectively is an extra tackle on the field. Yeah. Like going into the season,
that big. He's big.
There were people who were talking about like maybe Darnell Washington, if it doesn't work out for him at tight end, he could transition to tackle because he's 6'6", 264. He is a huge mountain of a man, and he has 11-inch hands. And those were on full display when he made one of the most spectacular catches that I've ever seen, literally stabbing a ball out of the air, one-handed, against the grain. But that's not what he's known for, and that's not what his role would be in Detroit. His role in Detroit would be, we're going jumbo, and we can do it a lot more often because we have a guy who, as I mentioned, 6'6", 264, but runs a 4.64, has incredible agility for his size. This is a guy who broad jumped 10. Yeah. Like, here's the thing. You get a guy like Darnell Washington out on the field, and a lot of people might think, okay, he's just in there for blocking. You're telling me he can't do what Brock Wright did last year and do it even better than him because he has all the intangibles and all the athleticism? Like, he is a guy that, how many times have the Lions taken a tight end in the first round and it's been just an absolute disaster? At 18, I'm at least entertaining the idea of it. Like, I'm open to it.
Over Michael Mayer from Notre Dame. Like which might be the way to go. I'm tired of thinking about Notre Dame tight ends.
To me, that's the question, though, because he was already, I think, like a borderline first-round talent going in, and now I think he might be a bona fide first-round talent going in. So if you want him, you might have to take him at 18 or trade down. If there's some sort of trade-down scenario where the Lions are maybe picking in the 20s, maybe it's a little more tolerable there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
I've got a couple names here. These are kind of later day names I could give you, mostly on the offensive line for the two. I've got the main one I want to get to is, well, first off, I might as well say there was some news today that Andrew Voorhees from USC tore his ACL at the combine, which is awful news. He was a very well-regarded guard prospect, and I was originally going to write about it write him down here until I saw the news. I think he still gets drafted, but it kind of really upsets the timeline. But keeping it in LA, there's another prospect that you can look. I think I've seen people grade him around the fifth round, but honestly, he had such a good combine. I could see him moving up to like probably even the fourth, maybe third. And that's UCLA's John Gaines II. RAS scored 9.95. Which Kent notes, this is 8 out of 1,309 guards from 87 to 2023. He's a little on the smaller size, but he's played first off, flexibility. He's played all three line positions, 6'3", 300 pounds. But he moved really well in the short shuttle, excuse me. And this could be someone like, look, the Lions at some point have to address their interior, especially life after Halapoulivaati Vaitai. I don't think this is a top guard prospect, but he's someone who could be a bit of a project for you, someone you could like stick on the depth. And again, with that kind of versatility under his belt, he's someone I want to go back and look at the UCLA tape on, and someone I want to talk to my UCLA people about how well he played in college, because I think that could be someone very valuable for the depth for the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, you just highlighted two things that the Lions covet a ton, which is versatility on the inside that can play any of those positions, and speed, athleticism. They love pulling guards. Like, part of their gap zone scheme is about pulling guards and having them make sure they're athletic and strong. And so it's got the traits. I can't speak much to his game film, but the things that you mentioned are things that the Lions like, so wouldn't be surprised to see them take a late round flyer on him.
I also kind of found little enough with, I know he plays tackle, but Cody Mauch.
You just love him and his gap tooth smile.
Gap tooth and giant red burning hair. The fact Ryan mentioned earlier about like converting from lineman to tight end. He converted from tight end to lineman.
He's just a goofball. He's not a bad player, but I feel like he's getting over it because he's a goofball.
I think he had like an 8.7 on RAS, but anyway. So I think that's it for our offense. Ryan, you want to kick us off on defense?
Yeah, sure. So this is truly somebody who really wasn't on my radar at all, because there are a few names that admittedly and deservedly are being thrown around for the Lions at pick 6 and at pick 18 over the past few months at cornerback. And those are the names like, Christian Gonzalez, who somebody, lit the combine on fire and, walked away from it in dramatic fashion. Devin Witherspoon is somebody who, gets a lot of attention for the Lions at 6. Joey Porter Jr. from Penn State as well. But there was another Big Ten cornerback that arguably had, maybe outside of Anthony Richardson, the most impressive performance at the combine. And that is Maryland's Deonte Banks, who is a cornerback. Just incredible numbers. Put up a 9.99 RAS score. So about as good as you can. Runs a 4.36, a vertical jump of 42 inches. I went back and I watched some of the highlights, so I haven't watched the tape, so to speak, but he is a guy who is physical. He plays at the line of scrimmage. He's a good tackler. He's a willing tackler. But this is somebody who, I think before he has this explosive combine performance, he's a guy who's he's a second round pick, or he's, maybe second, third round pick. I think on the consensus athletic board that they last updated towards the end of February, Deonte Banks was ranked 64 in the top 100. So this is a guy who legitimately has first round rub now. Yeah. And if the Lions decide, if they move back, if they're drafting at the end of that first round, maybe they move up into it for whatever reason. The Lions have a huge need at cornerback, Jeremy, and this guy has athleticism out the wazoo, and then on top of that, like I said, from watching some of the highlights, looks like a Dan Campbell guy in terms of a guy who loves to play football, loves to hit, loves to get his nose into things. So
love those
totally
big
a guy who just popped up on my radar too. Yeah, and his size too, 6'2", right?
6'2". Yeah. And I think, I think most people are circling the Lions grabbing one at 6 or grabbing one at 18. But if they decide to go kind of that luxury route of whether they grab a quarterback or they grab a running back or they grab a tight end, and corner's still a need, this is a deep class. And I think that's a great tier 2 guy that the Lions could target with their first, second round pick if he lasts that long.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me give you one who might be a pick at number 18. I was kind of shocked. I think he's kind of he maybe has worked himself into, I don't know how far he was on defense, down on defensive tackles, Jeremy. Someone asked me if he's past Jalen Carter at this point. I don't think that's the case, but this is someone who could definitely be at play at 18. And he wasn't on my radar at first, but that is Pittsburgh's Kalijah Kancey, who ran the fastest time for a defensive tackle at the combine. What was the? I just had it up.
2002 or 2003 or something.
Since 2000,
yeah.
4.67. Combine that plus the fact that he's from Pitt. Instant comparisons to Aaron Donald. Instant stir fried. He doesn't have an RAS score because he didn't do the explosive testing or agility. Now, granted, Kent's numbers did say he grades very poor as far as just measure size. Yeah. Very low on height and weight.
Same thing as Aaron Donald, right? Undersized, extremely athletic guy that went to Cal.
And I know that the Lions want to be big up the middle, but I think first off, I think Daniel Jeremiah and his coach Pat Narduzzi both said this guy's going to light up the combine for, before he went there. And a guy like that who can shoot gaps is incredibly valuable for someone like the Lions. As if you want to beef up the pass rusher, again, I understand he doesn't really fit with McNeil, or he's not really a nose tackle or a big body you can put up front. But if you've got, but it's time to rush the passer on third and distance, throw him in there.
Yeah. And if they here's the thing, Aleem makes them versatile. If they want a quick, twitchy guy up the middle, they can throw Aleem at the nose, and he can clog up some space while they get a more twitchy guy. Now, I don't know. I don't know what I think about this guy, because I do think people are way too eager to make the Aaron Donald comparison just because he's undersized.
I think it is too.
And just because he went to Pitt.
Right.
The production isn't anywhere near on the level that it was with Aaron Donald, but
no, in his Pitt career, he had like three seasons, 91 tackles, 16 sacks, three pass breakups,
it's not bad.
Fumble. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah,
that's great. But
34.5 tackles for loss, like it's fine.
Yeah,
I think the question is, are you willing to spend your later first round pick on him, or or is he someone who, like, if he falls to day 2, you're just going to snap up as soon as he's there? It might be one of those things where maybe, like, I don't know, Holmes could even trade up for it. He's hard for me to gauge. Why I'm interested in him right now is it's hard for me to gauge where he's going to go.
Yeah. And listen, when you come off a combine and you have an extremely athletic guy like that, his stock is going to be very high right now. It'll probably cool off by the time we hit April.
Sure.
Let me stick on the defensive line, because I think maybe the guy that had the best overall combine of anybody. Like, we know the quarterbacks get a bunch of praise. You know, Bijan gets a lot of praise for his athletic traits. I think I have to go with Adetomiwa Adebawore.
You practiced that for a while.
I did. The edge rusher / I think he can kick inside too, from Northwestern. And the reason why I don't think he gets enough attention is because as an edge rusher, he finished, I think, fifth or sixth in his 40 time, and that's what everyone obsesses over. By the way, finishing fifth or sixth is good with
that's
a 4.49.
Still really good. Yeah,
but
he was on my short list too.
He did it at 282. Most of these other edge guys.
He's on my short list here to talk about this too, because like the man's a monster.
Most of these other edge guys that are running in the 4.4s, they're at the 250 mark. They're 250, maybe 260. No one's at 282 doing this. In relative to his size, that is an insane score. Just absolutely ridiculous. And you look at the 10 split, which was unofficial, but also in like the 98th percentile. Everything this man did was the jumps, again, 94th, 95th percentile. He's just an athletic freak, but he's got the size. So he can be on the edge. You can slide him inside. If you're not committed to John Kaminsky long-term, if you have any questions about Josh Paschal in terms of long-term, or you just want depth at that position, nothing wrong with having depth. What have we said this whole entire offseason? Yeah, edge is looking pretty good right now, but you can never have too much of a good thing, especially when it comes to the defensive line. He's a guy, but again, like, it's kind of going right into that blind spot. This is a guy who was maybe a third-round prospect going into the offseason. He kills it at the Senior Bowl, like one of the biggest standouts in the Senior Bowl. Now he kills it at the Combine, and now, again, maybe this is artificial inflation with recency bias, but I think he's sliding into it, like, now, not just day 2 talk, but like maybe end of round 1, and that's kind of like the blind spot between 18 and whatever the Lions' 2 second-round picks are. I'm assuming they're towards the end.
In the 40s, yeah.
Yeah, in the 40s. So there's a big 20-30 player gap there that I don't know if they're going to have an opportunity to grab this guy, but I think he was the biggest winner of the Combine, period. And
yeah,
I have one more
I think
guy too. But.
Oh, I was going to say real quick to your point about kind of him emerging with a great Senior Bowl performance in the Combine. This might be one of those effects too, where it's like Northwestern was just like a bad football team.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
nobody was sitting there watching NU football. Yeah,
you're not getting a lot of pub, you're not getting a lot of rub, and he's a guy, and too his bench too, right? Like a strong dude, like put up 27 reps, which was a good number for him as well. So like you said, kick inside, really interesting.
Yeah, and as our chatter Incognito mentions, says this guy was playing hard late in games even when Northwestern was 1-11. Culture fit.
Yep.
Culture fit right there. The other guy, and I'll make it short on this guy since you guys mostly didn't say 2 guys. This is
I got in 2 linemen, so you can.
Fair. So you guys know I don't go hard into draft mode really until the NFL Combine. So in a way, I feel like that frees up my mind a little bit, and maybe this is me just rationalizing bad habits. But Daniel Scott, the safety out of Cal, is someone who I knew nothing about. I didn't see any of his athletic scoring. All I saw was the on-field drills with this guy, and he was.
Yeah. Be honest though. Much like Adebawore, like you're not watching Cal football.
No, and I'm not watching college football in general. So
yeah,
most of these guys I have to go back and watch them, but. Daniel Scott, the man moves like water out there on the field. Like the hip flipping drills, back pedals, change of pace, like no wasted motion. This guy is just so fluid out there. And test it. And then I went back and looked at his testing, and of course, off the charts. He had one of the best, I think the second best 40 amongst the safety class. The trick with him, though, is he's 25, I think. So in a lot of ways, this is like a Chase Lucas kind of sign. And actually, I draw a lot of comparisons to Chase Lucas because he's athletic. He's a captain. He's a highly intelligent guy out there. You look at some of his tape that I've seen, and he's very instinctive out there. So he's a smart player with athletic traits who's 25, he's going to be a pretty mature guy out there on the team. So, you want to take like a second stab at a Chase Lucas type late in this draft. I'd say keep your eyes on Daniel Scott.